The top 10 things we need to see in Jujutsu Kaisen sequel manga. Is Yuji actually stronger than Gojo now? Or are the fraud allegations true that bum Megami went out fighting a grade 3 curse? As many of you know, Gege Akutami is back writing for Jujutsu Kaisen once more, but this time our story is taking place in the distant future, and now for some reason there's aliens? Okay. But with our story taking place so far in the future, many of the fans as well as myself are dying with curiosity on what happened to our beloved cast and what will happen next. Well, in this video today, we will be discussing the top 10 things we all want to see in this new sequel manga. And make sure to watch through to the end because I will include some extra honorable mentions of small things also. But keep in mind, these aren't in any real particular order. It's just 10 things we want to see. But yeah, with that, subscribe as it helps me pay rent. And without wasting any more time, let's hop into it. So first off in our list, and one of the biggest ones, is the glorious return of Yuji Himtodori. So far with the first chapter being out, probably the second by the time of this uploaded. The only two characters we have confirmed death on is Maki and Yuta. The manga mentions nothing of Yuji's current status, but I've seen lots of people talking about how we need to see Yuji as an old wise master who's ridiculously strong. In almost every anime, there's always that one old wise master who's also like top of the verse. I would love to see Yuji be that for Yuta's grandkids in this story. For example, if the aliens did pull up and started beating the kids, everyone would go crazy. If like an 80-year-old Yuji pulled up absolutely shitting on all these new gens, showing everyone why he was the MC. People also forget how much of an absolute hyper prodigy Argot is. The entire story of Jujutsu Kaisen takes place in a 6-month period. So within 6 months, Yuji went from default human to top of the verse. Within 6 months, he learned how to control cursed energy, time lag punches, soul punches, became the greatest Black Flash user in sorcerer history, simple domain, blood manipulation, cleave, dismantle, reverse curse technique, and a fucking domain expansion. God damn. What a fucking monster. And then you add in the fact that he's the physical strongest without curse energy, and you have a true monster on your hands. The other thing to keep in mind is the fact that Yuji's body learned Shrine because Sukuna used it in his body. So one would surmise Yuji could probably use his fire arrow on top of everything else also. And this last one may be reaching, but Sukuna learned the world cutting slash after seeing how Maharaga did it. And since Yuji has Shrine as well, there is a chance he also saw the blueprint from Sukuna using it and also eventually learns the world cutting slash. Like, he's my goat for a reason, bro. Now imagine Yuji in this new manga after studying and perfecting his Jujutsu for another 60 years. He could, honest to God, with his growth rate, probably little bro and body Sukuna if they were to run the ones again. And honestly, the first chapter of this new sequel manga may actually support this theory. This guy is talking to Yuta's grandson and says, Satra, Gojo, and Yuji Itadori put an end to the Culling game 68 years ago. But do you know of anyone as extraordinary as them nowadays? Is this the glorious Yuji upskill everyone was hoping for? I dare say it is. I mean, I feel like Yuji should scale to Prime Gojo now because of this statement. Because why not mention Yuta or Hikari or anyone else here? No, they specifically said, do you know of anyone as extraordinary as those specific two? As if lumping them in the same category. I don't care if anyone says. This confirms Yuji to end up as strong as Sukuna and Gojo, which brings a tear down my eye as it's so beautiful. So yeah, first and foremost in this new show, we need to see Yuji, and we also need to see him teach these young bloods that there's levels to this shit. Now for our next point, a lot of people were annoyed about this in the finale of JJK, but Gege can right his wrongs by adding a Gojo funeral flashback scene somewhere in the manga. Gojo was one of, if not the most important character in the entire story, and when he died in the story, everyone expected some kind of scene of all the characters mourning his death, saying a few good words. But no, Gege hates us and showed us nothing. We never really got to see any of the characters mourn because the second he died, everyone jumped into the fight without a second to waste. I think everyone was annoyed Gege never paid proper respect to the character that literally made his show popular. Like, the show just wouldn't have been as popular without Gojo, let's be real for a second. There desperately needs to be a flashback somewhere in the manga where all of us in the cast can give the GOAT a proper exit. For fuck's sake, he was literally Megami's father, and we never really got to see him even talk about it. Seeing all his friends and students together honoring him would have just been a very heartwarming scene, and I still to this day cannot believe we never got that in the original manga. But with that, we are now going to our third point, and this one is probably one of the more important ones for actually writing a good story, and that is not power cliffing everyone from the original series. A lot of shonen mangas that run for an extended period of time have this issue where characters that should be the top of the verse eventually over time become actual fodder to the newer generations. Like, just think about how Dragon Ball Z Frieza was once a monstrous wall of power and had next to no rivals in the universe, and now in Super, a power level like Frieza's in Z is genuine pure fodder trash that rusty, out of training 6-year-old could easily farm. Now, I haven't read Boruto, but I have heard characters like Modulo, who were once so genuinely strong they only could lose to plot, are now just kind of fodder to these new, like, 13-year-olds. Doesn't really feel good when you watch these characters go on insane journeys, pushing themselves beyond their limits on top of being super prodigies, getting gapped by random children in the future. It really just doesn't make sense and feels unearned and cheap. But if these aliens come down and are magically way stronger than Gojo or Sukuna, it would be so dog shit. Gojo and Sukuna were so absurdly stronger than everyone else in the verse that having that power level become weak would be so stupid. Like, I don't care if they are the grandchildren of Maki and Yuta. They should not magically become strong enough to fight beings even near that level anytime soon. I know a lot of people think power scaling is cringe, but it's just genuinely not. It is very important to keep a consistent level of strength in shows because as humans, we need things to be logical and make sense. Overall, what I'm saying is I pray Gege doesn't fuck up the scaling and just magically make these guys ridiculously strong for no reason. Now, our next thing on this list is some kind of evolution on Jujutsu sorcery. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, but Toby, didn't you just say not to power cliff with newer characters? Aren't you just contradicting yourself? And to that, I say, hush. You smooth-brained walnut. When I say evolve in Jujutsu, I don't mean just giving people new techniques that would make Infinite Void look like a calm walk in the park. I mean just expand on the system of cursed energy and how it's evolved in the future. A perfect example of what I mean is in Frieren. Since decades have passed, certain moves like Zoltrak evolved over time. Or a show like Hunter, which has some of the most complex and in-depth power system in all of anime. If the author can somehow expand on what cursed energy actually is, and also show more creative ways to use it, that would be pretty cool. Like, for example, just look at how nerdy Hunter gets. And this is just scratching the surface. People love to nerd out about curse techniques and theorize about what a certain character could or couldn't do. So I think the more info we get, the better. The other thing I would like to see when talking about the evolution of Jujutsu is some kind of newly learned mass technique. What I mean by mass technique is something that any character can use. I love things like reverse curse technique, black flash, and domains. They are all things that on paper any sorcerer could do with enough training. All these things add a level of depth of power to the world, and with how many years have gone by, I would find it cool to see some sorcerers created a new technique featuring the evolution of cursed energy. Now, what that would be, I have no fucking idea. I'm not the writer, but Gege has definitely a creative mind, so I definitely hope he at least explores that area of the world more. But with that, folks, we are already on our 5th point, and oh boy, this one will be a little scuffed. And what that'll be is going through and fixing every plot hole or explaining every confusing thing in the original series. Like, first and foremost, I just have to ask, what the fuck is this finger Gege showed at the very end of the series? But that's just like one thing. There's a lot of random ass things. Like, how was Megumi's brain not absolutely mush after tanking Infinite Void for Sukuna like 16 times? What were the binding vows people like Sukuna spammed in the final battle? Because if we read the final fight, Sukuna is popping these like Skittles, but it's never even explained what vows he makes. That's why memes were created like Sukuna making a vow for more power in exchange for never eating eggs on his toast again, or some goofy ass shit. But then there's other shit like with Kenjaku being Yuji's mom. Did he actually take back shots in order for his grand plan to come together? And speaking of Kenjaku, how the fuck did he get Sukuna's long lost twin's soul from the womb and seemingly create Yuji's dad? What? I don't even know at this point. Or I guess apparently Yuji's dad is Sukuna's twin brother reincarnated. What? But even so, even if that is the case, how did Kenjaku even know it was him and locate him? Either way, there's just so much shit that really wasn't fully explored or even explained in the original story. So if they use a few chapters to fill in some of our holes, that will be some of our plot holes, that would be very much appreciated by the fans. But now going to our 6th point, we need a proper Sukuna backstory, or how he came to be. Sukuna was one of the most fun villains in modern anime, with his raw aura in just every single scene he was in. Not a fallen hero or a misunderstood character, just a guy swinging his cock into anyone and everyone that gets in his way. No grand plans to fix the world, just a guy who literally does whatever he wants when he wants. Now, one of the issues, as much as everyone else who read JJK is, where is the Sukuna lore or backstory? Most anime will literally give some lore or backstory to almost every monkey-ass side character that no one gives a shit about. But then you go to JJK, and the main villain, who's arguably the most important character in the entire story, gets almost zero lore given to him. Like, genuinely, from Akutami, what was even the thought process behind this dog shit decision? We actually do get a few small nuggets from Sukuna's past, but genuinely, it's not much. Sukuna mentions in the start of chapter 257 that he actually was supposed to be a twin, but because his mother was starving, he decided to eat his own twin in the womb. That's it. Then in chapter 237, Kashimo asks if he became the strongest or he was born this way. And you know what philosophical, interesting nugget of information he gives us? I don't know, but I bet I was a creepy kid. Wow. Thanks, Sukuna. Very insightful. But then our extra final nugget was from the final chapter. We get to see Mahito talk to Sukuna's soul, and he tries calling Sukuna out. You were lying, weren't you? To yourself and others. About just living as befits your nature. I think your life was about revenge. Against everyone who scorned you as an abomination. It amounts to the same thing. This is my nature. I know no other way. No, that's wrong. I could have chosen how to live. I had 2 chances. But I had to vomit out the curse writhing in my entrails. I was afraid of immolation by my own curse. If there's a next time, maybe I'll change how I live. Wow. Talk about the most useless bit of lore drop of all time. We all see Sukuna and we're excited thinking we'd get something actually interesting about Sukuna. But in reality, we just get this page of him talking about how he could have made different choices as we see the crossroads of 2 different women. Who these women are, you ask? Literally no clue at all. Maybe this one's Urame? I don't even know. Like, it doesn't even look like her. But even if it is, who's the other one? Don't know. Don't care. We don't get to know. Gege doesn't care. We don't care. So basically, even with all these nuggets of info we got, still more or less have zero real backstory and one of the best villains in modern anime. So with all that said, in the new sequel manga, I really hope Gege actually gets the dick out of his ass and actually decides to give us a proper backstory. Now, next up on our list is a smaller point, but it's a desire for more slice of life chapters. For most shows, filler is ass and not enjoyed. But Gege built up such great and likable cast of characters that the viewers basically begged him to add some filler. So much so that people were coping with themselves, making up fan chapters of this. Like, bro, how hype would it be to see after the Sukuna fight a flashback of Hikari bringing the gang to a casino to celebrate? That shit would be peak. Hikari's putting his life savings on green while Megami whips out Maharaga on the poor dealer after losing $20. Especially with all the emotional pain Gege put us through with everyone dying or nearly dying, it would heal the soul to see all of our favorite characters having fun, smiling for once. And as much as I'd like for there to be flashbacks, I think he should also do this with the current story. Give some normal slice of life chapters with these characters so we can actually see them enjoying life before Gege inevitably sends them all to the Shadow Realm. But filler like this only can work if we actually enjoy the cast, and that neatly brings us to our 8th point. And this is arguably the most important point in the entire list. If he actually wants this manga to succeed, we need to see Gege create another strong cast of characters just like the first story. In the first story, we see so many absolute banger Giga Chad characters. We got Chads like Yuji, Todo, Yuta, Hikari, Toji, Gojo, Sukuna, and many, many more. The most important element in any story, to me at least, are the characters. Even if you write a perfect script with genius levels of writing, I genuinely won't care if I don't fuck with the characters. Like, look at Breaking Bad. If Walter was like a boring dude, the show would just be ass. Like, let's just be real for a second. The writing doesn't mean much if the characters aren't cool. Just going over some of the characters, we got Yuji, a character who was relatively mid in the beginning of the show, becoming one of the most raw, hype people to watch. Was truly a beautiful transition. Then we got Yuta, who was just non-stop ore farming from start to finish of the story, always giving us some of the rawest panels. And then we got our glorious King Hikari. This guy wrote an entire character that's all about gambling. In what universe is he not going to be a peak character? Then we get to the absolute heavy hitter characters. First off, as I said before, we got Sukuna, one of the most fun characters in anime. He genuinely doesn't even have one boring scene in the entire show. Every time he appears, you just know you're going to witness a peak fight or aura farming. And then finally, the holy grail of anime characters, my 2 glorious kings, Gojo and Toji. Oh my, like, what can I even say about these 2 that hasn't already been said? I guess first off, we'll talk about my 6'3", glorious, sexy, perfect, blue-eyed Lord and Savior, Satoru Gojo. Arguably one of the most perfect characters in all of anime. Genuinely speaking, mean, Jujutsu Kaisen wouldn't even be nearly a fraction of as popular if it wasn't for this character. A funny, lovable, shit-talking personality with the raw power to back it up. Bro legit steals the spotlight in every single scene he's in, no matter what. A character loved to such an extent that his death literally had funerals held in real life. Rarely does a fictional character ever carry so much aura around with him. But then we go to my absolute GOAT, Toji. Genuinely a top 1 character in the entire series. Toji is literally the concept of aura incarnate. Every time this guy appears on screen, he is absolutely slapping someone with his claw. This guy is genuinely one of the most fun characters I've ever seen. Dude is just seriously on another level of aura farming. His voice in the Japanese version on top of everything just exudes power and testosterone. And if you still have any doubts about how much I like Toji, just look at my channel's profile picture. I mean, it's been that for years now. My point in all this rambling is people like the series so much because there's such an amazing cast with so many peak past characters. And now that the show is set like 70 years in the future, most of our main cast will likely be gone. So it's a given that there will be a whole array of new characters. And if the author can't cook to the same level, then I fear the show won't do as well as it should. But with that, we're almost done with our list as we go to the 9th point. JJK has always been known for its amazing fights and peak hype during them, so I request not only peak action throughout the manga, but I really want to see if we can hopefully get a fight on par with Gojo versus Sukuna. Now, truthfully, I can't really see this happening, as I think this would be genuinely asking the author to catch lightning in a bottle 2 times, which is like, bro, what are the chances of that? But if he can pull off another monumental fight like Gojo versus Sukuna, Gege will go down in history as one of the best mangakas for creating fights the world has ever seen. For him to pull off another fight like this, firstly goes back to my last point of creating good characters. First and foremost, he would need to create 2 characters people care about as much as Gojo and Sukuna. And call me a pessimist, but I don't think he has that kind of sauce to write 2 more characters to that level. But even if by some miracle he manages to do that, he needs to write them in such a way where the fan base is almost split down the middle between them. Part of the biggest reason the Jujutsu Kaisen fan base is so peak is we undoubtedly have the best slander out of any other fan base, and it's not even close. Literally every chapter of this fight spawned in thousands of different memes, all more peak than the last. If Gege somehow pulls off such a miracle, a white tear will roll down my leg once more, as it had done in the past. But on the topic of memes and slander, we go to our 10th and final point. For our 10th point, I would say scratch everything I said before. The biggest and most important thing this show needs to be successful, that the first encapsulated so strongly, is just being fun. The biggest reason for JJK's success is that it was just non-stop fun and enjoyment. From characters like Todo hallucinating about fighting with his idol, to Hikari dancing on the battlefield, Jujutsu Kaisen is just a goofy show. It perfectly gave the audience non-stop fun and enjoyment. And not just the actual story itself, but our wonderful community. Literally, within 1 chapter being released, we had the complete and full revival of Lobotomy Kaisen, and there has never been a single better time in human history to be alive. Within 1 chapter, we are already spreading the funniest fraud allegations to the aliens I've ever seen. The memes of, oh shit, Miwa's still alive, let's come back in another 50 years, make me laugh every time. The fact these bum-ass aliens waited for all the strongest characters to die before invading already puts all these monkeys on fraud watch. They saw Sukuna and Gojo's domain expansion and said, wallahi, we ain't built for this modern era. Let's come back in 70 years when everyone is gone. Or the fact that someone jokingly said Potential Man was probably slimed out by a grade 3 curse, and the fact that the entire community just ran with the joke and basically made it canon. It's just so funny. I saw like 50 of these videos on my For You page in a row one night in bed, and I was genuinely dying of laughter no matter how many times I saw the same joke. I just kept laughing. Also, the fact that in almost every TikTok I saw people lowering the grade of number from the curse was also just funny. Our community slander and memes is truly what separates JJK from a great show to one of the best in our generation. And truly for our sake, as well as the news stories, I truly hope they keep the same levels of fun and hype as the original. If they can do that, then I have no doubt this will be just as amazing and successful as the first version. But with that, folks, I do want to go over some shorter honorable mentions. Firstly, I want to see some kind of flashback of prime adult Yuta and Yuji working side by side to absolutely farm something. I also want to see if Megami did in fact go out as the bum he was always meant to be, dying to the world's first grade 5 curse behind a Wendy's. I also do want to see the author give us at least a small flashback to each side character in the story, so we could at least see what happens to them after JJK. And then I of course want to see something like Hikari in the casinos with this femboy girlfriend winning big. I also need to see a scene of Gojo and Sukuna chilling in heaven. Now, before you say anything, listen. I know it's a stretch, but it is possible Sukuna is in heaven. This isn't even a joke. It's actually canonical to the story that our glorious muscle daddy made it to the pearly gates. If Toji can get in, I mean... Now, speaking of heaven, I would actually love a heartfelt scene of Yuta and Gojo's other students seeing him in heaven after all these years. That would just be such a heartwarming scene, and I just know everyone would love it. But yeah, I've rambled on long enough. Those were the top 10 things I would like to see in Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo. I don't know if it's Modulo or Modulo, whatever. If you agree with anything I said or think I missed anything, make sure to comment down below what you'd like to see as I read all my comments. And yeah, like and subscribe for more JJK content in the future, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.